Good evening. Good evening. It's Russ again with Sequoia Fund Live, and welcome to the show. We have a very special guest, somebody I'm really happy to be able to talk to. We've known each other for years, but we don't get enough opportunities to just chat. And I'm really excited about having him on the show tonight. And he's got so much information for you that you're probably going to want to grab a pen and some paper and take some notes. I want to welcome to the live stream Mike Arriola of the Small Business Administration. Mike, how are you this evening?
I'm well. Hey, great to be here with you, Russ. Thanks so much for having me. It's been a while. First met you when I moved out to Western North Carolina. Must have been about 16, 17 years ago. And we've,
Yeah.
kind of kept in touch over the years, both in service to small business. And so it's great to be with you again.
Likewise. Now, I think the last time you and I got to spend any quality time together was Sequoia Fund's 20th birthday, and
Yep.
you came out to help judge the cake contest, and we we ate a lot of cake that day. And you brought some colleagues too, and it was good to meet them. But yeah, we don't get an opportunity often enough to sit down and talk, and which is one of the reasons I'm really glad that you agreed to join me this evening. You know, people think about the SBA and they just think about startup dollars or I need to buy a new building. I need to build a warehouse or a factory or something like that. And there is so much going on at the SBA, and we want to touch on all of that. I want us to talk a little bit about the last year and a half, just kind of setting the stage. And I know that the Small Business Administration caught a little bit of flack for the way some of these dollars were rolled out. But correct me if I'm wrong. You guys have some proven processes that you use with hurricanes, tornadoes, other natural disasters, where you have a couple $1 billion to pump into a community. You've never seen anything like what you went through last year. How did you guys handle that?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. We've never seen anything like we did last year. And it wasn't just one program we were trying to manage, Russ. It was about four or five or six all at the same time. We're accustomed to doing the economic injury disaster loan, which is available for businesses to seek out working capital financing. So that's been in place for a number of decades. With that program, it was just a matter of accommodating the influx of volume because these are folks applying for idle loans to the SBA from across the country. Then there was PPP, which had no such precedent. That program was basically the federal government's means of looking out for the best, fastest, most efficient way of getting the money out there to struggling small businesses and nonprofits of all kinds. So PPP, we did not have a playbook, but we needed to get the money out as quickly as possible. And many people like to say that as far as constructing PPP, it was like the SBA was building the plane as we were flying it in terms of rolling out the PPP loan program because there was no precedent. We were very quickly signing up all kinds of lenders. And we found, as we were rolling out PPP, as an example, that there were a lot of stakeholders that were kind of raising their hands and saying, SBA, this doesn't work for us. Maybe you should do it this way. And so we just went ahead and rolled with the punches and said, okay, we'll go ahead and change it because this seems to be what works best for, this type of business. Or we'll just tweak our calculation method a little bit more to give more money to folks that are wanting to apply for even higher amounts of PPPs. We can permit, as we got like a couple of more rounds of PPP financing with legislation, as the rounds were sort of transitioning into each other, we found out that, this group of folks were shut out, so let's include them this time. And it's for that reason that we saw that a lot of our chambers of commerce were really happy that they themselves, not just their members, but the chambers of commerce themselves, as an example, were able to apply for PPP. So that was IDLE, that was PPP, and then later on we had the Restaurant Revitalization Fund and the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant Program. And all the while we have these targeted advances up to 10,000 free money that folks can apply for. So there was the unprecedented nature of some of these programs, and then kind of overlaid on top of that was just the sheer volume. So
It was
lots to
incredible.
happen.
It
No
was
precedent
incredible.
at all. But it was fun and challenging.
Well, I'm going to give you kudos as an organization because one of the things that you mentioned was your adaptability in this, and a lot of people think, well, this is just this big behemoth government department, a big organization. But when you found out that a lot of those 1099 entrepreneurs, some of those contractors, some of those one man band type operations were struggling, you pivoted pretty quickly to take
Yeah.
care of those.
Yeah, for sure. Instead of using the tax forms and taking the net income as the basis for figuring out the loan amount that they could get and then eventually get forgiven, we adjusted that and said, well, let's take a look at the gross. That's way higher up on the income statement, which means that you're going to get a lot more money. So that I think that was very well received, and it was pretty much overdue for some of the folks that were wanting that kind of money. So we did that. We did a lot of targeted outreach for even more lenders to do PPP loans, not just your local banks, all these credit unions, a number of community financial institutions, and lots of fintech companies, financial technology companies that we never saw before. Names like Cabbage and Womply and Blue Acorn, and even some of those entities that from restaurants like Square. They are a fintech company. They got in on the act to help funnel all of this PPP money. So different kinds of lenders were able to step up to the plate, and it was in large part through them that we were able to serve sole operators, one-person businesses, and lots of minority firms as well.
So my colleagues in the CDFI industry would crack down on me pretty hard if I didn't at least mention this, because I love you. I love you. But I gotta say, well, one of the things that we noticed in our industry was that CDFIs, especially small CDFIs, and for those who are not familiar, community development finance institutions, we didn't quite meet the size criteria that the SBA was looking for. I think at one point the limit was lowered for 10 million in assets. So if you had 10 million, I think in the beginning it was 100 million. So if you were under 100 million in assets, you didn't get to participate in that program. And then they dropped it to 10 million, which was good. Still missed a few of us small fries like Sequoia Fund. And I'm going to say, Mike, I hope this never, ever happens again. I hope none of us have to go through this. I hope that when this money is exhausted and the dust settles, that even future generations don't have to deal with this. But if we ever did, cut us in. Let us let us wet our beak a little bit, because we are so close to a lot of these small businesses. We kind of felt like we had to do an end run with some of these large organizations to get people the access they needed. And so, hey, that's my only criticism. Again, I love you, and I love what the SBA does. I just think we could have helped more if somebody had said, oh yeah, there are a lot of really small CDFIs that we can include in this. And I'm sure there's a reason that it was cut off at 10 million. I mean, you got to stop somewhere, right? You got to have your limitations.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, Russ, there's lots of lessons learned from our experience over the last 18 months, just in terms of enlisting the right people, like CDFI, such as the Sequoia Fund, which I have known like for almost the last 20 years. But the other component to this is our experience over the last 18 months, especially with PPP, is that lots of people of color, Black and brown businesses, folks from indigenous communities in particular, we saw how they did not have equitable access to funding the way others did. And that, I think, is probably the biggest takeaway that SBA has out of that whole experience, not just serving our CDFIs, but more broadly speaking, serving our minority communities. And so over the last 18 months, we took that to heart, and we did things like allow community financial institutions like windows within which only they can apply, because we know that their communities are minority communities. But there's still lots of work still to be done. And it's sort of my mission as the director for this district director for the Small Business Administration is to see what SBA can do to become an ever increasingly active part in this conversation of ensuring equitable access to capital, either through our own lenders or enlisting new lenders, or even devising new programs so that we can deliver capital to folks who continually have trouble accessing it through regular channels.
I don't know your counterparts in other states, but I'm just going to say you have done a superb job personally, Mike. Every time there is a gathering of people in rural North Carolina, especially here in the mountains, talking about economic issues, talking about access to capital, talking about ways to grow the local economy, you're there. You show up. You're at every meeting. Either you're there or I see somebody from your office there. And so, again, I do have to plug the SBA in terms of your agility, in terms of your ability to learn, at least here in Western North Carolina, because we've seen it. We've been right there again, 17 years or so. I've seen your interest, and it's not just a job to you. I see that you have this deep connection to what small businesses are doing in North Carolina, and it, it it does a body good just to be able to see that there's somebody who cares. And again, a lot of people see the SBA as just this big megalith. I'm telling you, folks, I've worked with this guy for a long time, and if something needs to be done, if there's a voice that needs to be heard in small business, Mike is going to make sure that that voice is heard. And we've had some of these same conversations through different administrations. And it's, the theme is always the same. The focus is still on the small businesses. And I really do appreciate that. Now, we've just come through a hellish year, a year that for a lot of small businesses, it was the end. They're just simply not going to recover. We saw that on the ultra local level at Sequoia Fund. We've seen that on the state and the national level, that there are just businesses that were maybe a little bit weak fundamentally going into the pandemic, and they did not have the muscle to survive. And we saw some businesses that got very, very creative in how they were able to turn things around. Do you have any examples of some businesses that you've encountered throughout this last year and a half who were able to get very creative and make the most of their bad situation?
Yeah, we've got several of those. 3 times last year, the administrator of the SBA came out to North Carolina. And one of the visits that we did was with a number of businesses here in Charlotte. And one of them, a very well-known restaurant, was able to kind of adjust its business model, because just before the pandemic, they had bought a piece of property in order to expand. And what the pandemic did is it kind of really kicked their plans into high gear. They kind of leveled the property. They put up some nice picnic furniture, and they put some umbrellas and some coverings as well outdoors. And that has resulted in the restaurant really doing phenomenally well in terms of generating revenue as Mecklenburg County started to pivot and allow more in-person gatherings. And of course, everything was outdoors, so they did extremely well. We saw that example repeated time and time again with food service industries offering carryout, constructing patios. We also kind of adjusted our PPP loan so that you can use proceeds of the PPP loan to actually get compensation for the cost of upfitting or outfitting your business in order to accommodate those social distancing adjustments, which I think was a very important part of the PPP. It kind of adjusted as circumstances warranted. So we saw lots and lots of stories of small businesses kind of adjusting to the demands of lockdowns, quarantines, as well as customer demand. Another kind of facet of this, and this is another story that I saw repeated time and again in the state of North Carolina, but most especially in the mountains, is when I brought the administrator out to the Asheville area to visit some small businesses and to see how they have fared with PPP loans, with EIDL loans, with other kinds of COVID-related assistance. And one of the companies we went to visit was a company called Aoi Products. They make these like leather can holders and cup holders and other kinds of products like that. If you're a big company, doing like a promotional sale, typically they'll fill your swag bag with all kinds of those items with logos. Those are among the things that they make. What we saw in the Western North Carolina area is lots of folks in the outdoor industries, people that are manufacturing tents, bicycle parts. Somehow they all got it in their mind to get together because they realized that they all kind of knew each other in the outdoor products industry, and they got together and they started to fashion things like personal protective equipment, like those plastic masks and stuff. So they all kind of got together because they were an ecosystem unto themselves. And I thought that was a very inspiring story about how particularly our mountain folks can get together for the good of the country when their country really needs them.
It really is a different mindset today. A lot of people talk about how divided we are, but in terms of small businesses, especially on the local level, I see a lot more collaboration than competition anymore. You still want to compete, you still want to attract customers. And it used to be that really one of the only industries that would collaborate may have been, say, the bed and breakfast industry. You had uh, these birds of a feather that would flock together, and if my B&B is full one weekend, I will say, okay, go. You need to try Mike's. He's just across town, and that kind of thing. But you didn't see restaurants referring to each other. You didn't see local manufacturers doing this, and I think that is indicative of the time that we're in. That people do seem to be more collaborative. Um, the old saying, "A rising tide raises all boats." And people are realizing that if I'm just in this for me, my boat's not going to go up because the guys next door, their boat's not going to go up. And when you talk about the outdoor industry, that sector, heck, everything indoor was closed.
Yeah.
You had to become an outdoor business, whether, just like the restaurant down in Mecklenburg County that you're talking about, you had to be able to make those adjustments to do that. Now, again, a lot of people think, well, we're through the worst of it. Some pockets of the country, you would think they've completely forgotten this ever happened. But there's still some businesses struggling out there, and still some businesses that might need to take advantage of some of the programs and the products that the SBA offers. So tell us a little bit about what is still out there that people might be able to take advantage of.
Sure. So a couple of months ago, PPP was closed to new borrowers, Restaurant Revitalization Fund. I mean, that money, went like that. We'll see whether or not Congress decides to replenish that through legislation. Shuttered Venue Operators Grant, that is also closed to new applicants. So what is remaining is the SBA's Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, or EIDL, as it's known. And that's a direct loan from the federal government. We make EIDLs available in the aftermath of hurricanes, earthquakes, that sort of thing, to help small businesses with working capital needs. We also made that available in the midst of the pandemic. So that has been available for the last 18 months. And folks can still apply. They need to make sure that they send in their applications and make sure that they get it funded before December 31st. So it's October 13th. We're encouraging folks to apply for it while the money is there. And because after that, there's no telling whether or not Congress is going to be in any mood to provide more funding. Hopefully, we don't have to go that far. I think so far some of the signs are very positive in terms of declining hospitalization rates, declining new infection rates, and that sort of thing. So folks can still apply for the EIDL.
So you've got some slides. Can we take a look at those?
Yeah, that would be perfect. What I'll do is I'll kind of walk folks through where we are in terms of all of the assistance, and then I'll turn a little bit to the EIDL program.
Sure. So
Okay.
let's just let's say we start with this
Okay,
one.
yeah, perfect. So we did have the PPP loan program. We provided debt relief for folks with existing SBA loans. Last year, we picked up the tab for 6 months worth of debt payments. This year, we picked up the tab for 3 months worth of debt payments, according to legislation. And then we've got the payment and grant programs, EIDL, which I'm going to talk about, and the two advanced programs, targeted EIDL advance and supplemental targeted advance. That's free money of 10,000 and 5,000 that you apply for as you're applying for an EIDL. And then we have the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant and the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, both of which are closed as well. Next slide, please. So where are we here in North Carolina in terms of how many businesses have been served? Well, PPP is now closed. To date, we've funded about $18 billion.
Wow.
In a normal non-COVID year, we do about $1 billion annually through SBA loans. So we squeezed in 18 years worth of funding just in the last 12 to 18 months with PPP alone. Under EIDL, we've done about $6 billion in funding. And then with the various advanced programs, we helped close to 200,000 businesses with that. The Shuttered Venue Operators Grant, that's a very specific thing for live venue operators, museums, that sort of thing. Almost 500 businesses across the state so far. And then the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, that went quickly, like I said, in just under 3,000 restaurants and food service businesses.
Yeah. Now
So
we
yeah.
just real quickly, one of the big questions that we had during this was, somebody would apply for a PPP loan and they would say, "Can I apply for something else?" And yes, the answer was yes, that you could apply for the EIDL loan, but a lot of people, I think, froze. We saw a lot of people just freezing under the weight of maybe it was the magnitude of the whole situation, and also the paperwork and dealing with the bank, or maybe they didn't have a bank that they had a great relationship with, and they had to go, to a different lender to go through this. And again, we just saw a huge psychological effect on small businesses where they were almost paralyzed to some degree. And I say that to say that you may have been able to deploy more money if we'd been able to help people through that paralysis, because we encountered some of that. And of course, after the PPP closed, 3 weeks after it closed, we had people coming to us going, "Can I still apply for that?"
Yeah.
Well, it's too late now. But they finally got unstuck, and then it was too late.
Yeah.
So let's take a look at.
Okay, yeah, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the economic injury disaster loan. So this is the one that's still available. And by the way, if I could jump back to what you were just mentioning, yeah, I mean that it got to be a maze. And what we ended up doing is we ended up putting like a matrix of all the various programs on our website, saying, okay, in case you were confused, these are the various scenarios. If you got A, you can get B, maybe C. If you got D, you could maybe get, yeah. So we had to put them up on a matrix, and hopefully that helps some folks out. But I can understand how folks could easily get discouraged just through the labyrinth of programs and processes. But
Yeah.
But the COVID EIDL program is still here. Very generous terms, 3.75% interest. If you're a nonprofit, 2.75. It's got a very long term of 30 years, and your first 2 years are deferred, so you don't have to make any payments for the first 2 years. With an example of a $10,000 EIDL, your monthly payment is less than $50 a month. The use is pretty flexible. You can use an EIDL for any type of general working capital type of purpose, and you can apply through our website. And the loan has to be funded by December 31st, 2021. So please don't delay. Visit our website and get your application going now. Next slide.
So it doesn't just have to be applied for, it needs to be funded, you said.
It needs to be funded. If you get your application 12/30/21, there's Really no guarantee that you can get that you're going to get your money. And the other thing is it's while funds last. We just bumped up,
Yeah.
as the next slide here shows, we just bumped up the cap to 2 million. And so the larger companies are coming to me and saying, hey, I'd like to go ahead and go for my application for up to 2 million. And then they can go ahead and do that. We just started approving them a couple of days ago as of October 8th, because we want to make sure, first of all, that our smaller businesses can take advantage of that.
Yeah. You know,
One
that's
of
one
the,
of the things that
yeah,
we ran into, Mike, was some of the larger businesses just from the starter's pistol were ready to go and apply for this money. They had their books in order, their accounting was ready to go. They were able to pull together payroll records. They were able to pull together the information. We used this as a catalyst for helping small businesses get in better shape.
yeah,
A lot of them were just not ready to apply for these. They didn't have the information they needed to even complete an application. And so, we started looking at what are the potential upsides of this catastrophe. And one is just helping people get back to fundamentals, you know, rather than writing paper payroll checks and the old, if I've got checks in the book, I've got money in the bank kind of mentality. And it was a real uh, process, an educational process on our part in terms of how many people weren't ready, but people seemed to be pretty receptive. Where 6 months prior, if we'd done this in July of 2019, they never would have thought about whipping their books into shape.
yeah,
So
yeah, for
we need that.
sure. Yeah, for sure. And one of the sort of silver linings in all of this experience of the last 18 months is people have a better familiarity with all the resources that are out there to help them with exactly what you're talking about. From Sequoia Fund to all of the SBA resource partners, there's SCORE, SBTDC, the Women's Business Center, and as well as the small business centers with the community colleges. So folks are now a lot more familiar with the fact that if they need help, they need not go through this adventure alone. They have tons of technical
Right.
assistance resource providers that they can tap into.
Amen. Especially here in North Carolina. So
For sure.
you've bumped up the limits from 500,000 to 2 million,
Yep.
and they can
And
use it for a wide variety of things.
yeah, they can use it for general working capital purposes to pay bills, pay for utilities, pay for rent. Also, one of the things that we clarified is they can actually use an idle loan proceeds to pay for monthly payments on their existing debt. They can also use the proceeds, if they are so inclined, to pay off existing debt that is at higher rates of interest. And so that's a very important change that I wanted to put out there. Folks have high interest loans out there that they want to retire. They can use this loan for that. And again, the 24-month deferment is really a huge cost savings to them.
People, please take advantage of this. One of the things that we saw was that people needed quick money during the pandemic, and they borrowed it from individuals or they borrowed it from their credit card processor, which is very fast money. You can get a lot of money in 24 hours, but then they're going to dip in every day into your credit card receipts and take out their money before you get what's left. And there may not be anything left. We had several businesses fall into that category. So this is amazing. And people should jump all over that. That is a definitely something that people across the board could take advantage of.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And so I also talked about the 24 months deferment, which is huge. And then the rest of those rows really are for larger types of businesses where we simplified, because SBA takes a look at the whole picture. If you've got affiliated companies, how much are we authorized to lend to you? So those last couple of rows, I'm not going to belabor them. They're fairly detailed, but that's what that is all about. So
Okay.
next slide, please. Yeah, so let's take a look at three scenarios. If you're applying for an idle loan up to 25,000, no collateral, no guarantees. Minimum score of 570. Right there, that's pretty
Wow.
generous. That's
Yes.
pretty
Yes.
generous, right? Yeah, because most your traditional brick and mortar bank is usually going to say 700, please.
Right.
And for 25 to half a million, um, collateral is required for loans over 25,000 with a UCC1 security interest in the business assets and a personal guarantee for loans over 200,000.
Now,
Then,
let me just jump in here too, Mike, because
yeah,
when you and I use terms like UCC1, basically,
yeah,
this is just a piece of paper that says what equipment or what assets the lender has a claim to,
yeah,
a legal claim to that collateral. You can't take another loan against it. You can't sell it. You can't dispose of it without the lender knowing about it. And basically, what that does is it ties your stuff to the loan so that the lender is protected. And we get that question a lot of times when we talk about collateral, when we talk about using a UCC. Basically, it's just Uniform Commercial Code. It's a piece of paper that says we have now locked down your stuff until your loan is paid off.
yeah, correct. Yeah, explained perfectly. Yeah. And again, your minimum credit score for that range of loans is 570. Your credit score bumps up a little bit. The minimum is 625 for loans half a million to 2 million. UCC1 and business real estate
That's
is
still
required as
amazing.
collateral. Yeah. And then
That's
a
so great.
personal guarantee for loans over 200,000. So, yeah, imagine getting a $2 million business loan for 30 years, at 3.75% with collateral such as that. And, you can have a minimum credit score of 625. That just opens up lots of possibilities for all kinds of folks to get higher amounts of funding that they need.
And for someone who is ready to seize an opportunity, not just to recover, but to maybe stand in the gap where they would not have otherwise been able to for their customers, for their market, and take advantage of an opportunity to increase the business, hire more people, and do more things. What a perfect opportunity to be able to do that.
Yeah,
That
abs-
like those look, the restaurant that you were talking about, they're not going to take away the outdoor seating when things go back to normal, right? That's
for
additional
sure.
revenue for them.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we're seeing all kinds of people get pretty entrepreneurial about things that they can do with loans such as COVID idle. Yeah. Yeah. Next
Awesome.
slide. Yeah, so apply at sba.gov/idle. We've got website information and FAQs, do the sample intake there, and then go to the portal. If you have an existing idle, you don't apply for another one. You just apply for a loan modification to increase that
Oh,
up
wow.
to 500,000, up to 2 million, whatever is needed. And then what SBA does is we take a look at your tax transcripts and such, and we figure out, okay, this is how much you are entitled to in the form of economic injury that we have determined you're eligible for.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Though that reduction in the paperwork burden for people is really important, because I'm sure that there are people out there who believe to get more money, I have to go through this process all over again. And to be able to just do a simple loan modification is it takes a lot of pressure off of a business owner
Yeah,
to be able to do that.
yeah. And if the loan modification is approved, I mean, you'll be sent a promissory note modification with the amended repayment terms, and everything is done electronically. So you would do a DocuSign kind of thing with your loan documents, and everything would be handled that way.
So I am going to just go ahead and put this down at the bottom, so that when we move away from the slides, we've still got that. And people, please use that simple website. Go and get that. Like Mike was saying, today, as we're talking, it's October 13th. You don't have a lot of time, but there's a lot of opportunity there. These loans have to be funded, not applied for, not approved. They have to be funded by December 31st. Do not let grass grow under your feet to
For
make this
sure.
happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
What else is going on at the SBA that we need to be talking about, Mike?
Oh, lots. So we do loans. We do counseling and training primarily through our resource partners. So there's the SBTDC, Sandra Dennison, and those folks over at Western Carolina. There's Asheville SCORE and Western North Carolina SCORE here in the western part of the state that are available for assistance. There's the Women's Business Center at AB Tech Inca. We now have 5 women's business centers across the state. The very newest one is over at Winston-Salem State, at a historically black, our first historically black college that is the host of an SBA Women's Business Center. So lots going on there on the counseling and training front through our resource partners. So that's loans, counseling, and training. Finally, our other big program has to do with federal procurement, getting a foothold in the federal contracting marketplace. And the SBA's 8A Small Business Contracting Program is very much alive and well. I think in the fiscal year has just started. We've already gotten 6 new 8A firms for us to manage. And under the 8A program, SBA can serve as the prime contractor and award these federal contracts to you as an 8A certified small business, because we've given you our stamp of approval, we've taken a look at your financial statements and your capabilities, and we're fairly confident in your abilities to do the work that the government is asking to do. So the 8A program is like the Cadillac of all of our certification programs. And it is my privilege to announce, in case folks did not hear, that the SBA certified our very first tribally owned 8A firm owned by the Eastern Band of the Cherokee Indians tribe. So that was just less than a month ago. So congratulations and kudos to our folks there. It's Gidua Inc.
Gidua, yep.
Yeah, they do like base operation support services and that sort of thing with a very solid management team, and we're excited to have them on board. Can't wait to help them get their first contract. If they haven't gotten one already, I haven't kept tabs, consistently. But we're very excited about that, because getting an 8A firm for the tribe has been a personal goal of mine for many, many years. And as much as I would talk to you or Hope or I think it was John, who used to help with some of the technical assistance there. We kind of had conversations over the years, but finally we got an 8A certified firm to help our folks on the Cherokee Reservation. That's very important, because our tribally owned 8A firms, their whole mission is to look out for the economic well-being and self-sufficiency of the tribe. And so we're going to hold them to it. We're going to make sure that they do what they're supposed to do.
It's a tremendous opportunity. And they're a little bit bigger. They've got some money behind them, and 8A is a daunting task for a lot of smaller organizations. But when we talk about small organizations and opportunity, we could also talk about things like certified women-owned businesses, right?
Yeah.
So what are some of those opportunities that some of our micro businesses and some of our really small mom and pop type operations should be looking at in terms of take advantage of what the SBA can offer them?
Yeah, I think if you're entering, of course, SBA is federal, so we help our small businesses with federal procurement opportunities. I think the very first thing you need to do is you need to sit down and think about and research whether or not the product or service you provide is something that the federal government actually buys. Chances are it is, because the US government is the world's largest purchaser of goods and services, to the tune, in a normal year, of about $700 billion a year. There's actually a website that you can websites that you can go to find out about that. But one of the things you might want to take a look at is visit sbtdc.org and ask to speak to one of their procurement counselors. I believe in the West it is still Pam Racer. I believe Pam is still the go-to person for federal procurement, but she can help you kind of assess your likelihood for success in doing business with the federal government. There's all kinds of things, like I said, products and services that the federal government buys, but you also need to think about, where am I going to position my product? If for example, I own a home-based business that bakes, specialty cakes, well, you might want to check into getting onto the GSA schedule so that you can sell your cakes at some of the Navy exchanges or some of the other base grocery outlets and that sort of thing. Just if I can speak off the top of my head. But the important thing is to first seek out assistance, because this is another situation where you don't have to be doing this alone. Go to sbtdc.org. They'd be happy to help you navigate the whole federal universe of doing business with the government. Not just federal, they can also help with state and local as well.
Yep. And a lot of people think federal government, they think planes, tanks, missiles. They don't think peanut butter
Yeah,
cookies, blue jeans,
yeah,
t-shirts,
yeah,
swag bags like you were talking about.
yeah,
They every single event that I've been to where there's a federal department, even the SBA, they have goodies, everything from lip balm to you name it. It goes on up from there. So, yeah, don't underestimate what
yeah.
Uncle Sam buys. It's amazing, and I've seen little clothing stores in small towns across North Carolina be able to sell blue jeans and Carhartt jackets to Fort Bragg, to Camp Lejeune, to
Yeah.
other military bases, just because they were there and they had the inventory and they took advantage of the opportunity.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny that you mentioned Fort Bragg because I was just thinking of them. Fort Bragg is one of the largest Army bases in the country. They've got about 40,000 people on there. That's a good sized city. So think about what it takes to run a good sized city. Not just, grocery stores, gasoline stations, but all those troops and their dependents and their wives and their husbands also need, guess what? MWR, morale, welfare, and recreation. So whatever you can think of to run a good sized city, that's what the federal government needs to procure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Man, so much going on. Mike, we need to do this more often.
For sure. Yeah, I'd be
and
happy to check in.
and
Yeah.
I know that you had a colleague who was going to join us tonight. She was not able to, and we certainly want to have her on sometime and be able to talk about what she's doing here, specifically in Western North Carolina, because you've moved up in the world, and
Just a
so
little bit.
just a little bit, yeah, yeah. And congratulations on that. Um, you're over all of North Carolina, and North Carolina is better off for that.
Thank you so
So,
much. Thank you so much.
um,
Yes, Sharon Harvey is our Western North Carolina officer. She's based at AB Tech, Inca, with Jill and Dwayne and those folks over there. And
yeah,
her territory is my former territory. Basically, from Ash down to Cleveland County, all points west,
there you
God's
go.
country. She inherited God's country,
She
and yeah,
did. She
she's
did.
she's doing a great job. She came out to the SBA North Carolina from our Indianapolis, Indiana office, and she made terrific headway in terms of getting to know folks. And now, with all the COVID relief stuff, she's making a difference in folks' lives. Trying to get them the financing that they need.
Yeah. Well, when Sequoia Fund turns 25, we'll invite her and maybe she can bring you along for some more cake. And
Yeah, just say cake and I'm there.
I know, yeah, we'll travel for cake. I'm the
Yeah,
same. I'm the same, which is, we were just talking before we went on the broadcast about the nasty letter we get from the doctors at our age that got to walk more, eat less.
yeah,
According to my doctor, walking into the fridge is not exercise.
yeah.
What do I know? Um, But Mike, I'm going to give you the last word. Anything else that we need to talk about? I know, again, we have covered everything from soup to nuts, and you've given some great information. I do want to put back up um, the idle application website. Please, folks, take
Yeah.
advantage of that.
Yeah, I guess as a parting remark, I just kind of wanted to remind our audience here that in Western North Carolina that the SBA is your SBA, and I'm making it my intentional mission to make sure that particularly our underserved populations are not overlooked, that they do have a seat at the table when it comes to getting fair and equitable access to loans, counseling and training programs, and some of our contracting programs as well. So that's my personal mission, and that's what brings me to you tonight. And it's been great being with everybody. And take care.
Mike, thank you so much. We will plan to do this again and bring Sharon along for the ride, and we'll just have a big time, and look forward to seeing you again soon, my friend. Take care.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Folks, we have a special treat for you. We don't normally do back-to-back shows, but there's a topic that we just can't let go. We've been talking about this for a while. Sean Spruce and I are going to be getting together tomorrow night to be talking about a topic that I think is very timely, and that is investing and gambling in 2021, what's the difference? We have meme stocks, we have cryptocurrencies, we have sports book, we have a lot of different ways for people to put their money in areas where they might get a really good return, but also might show some losses. Sean and I are going to sort all of it out tomorrow night. I want you to join us right back here on either Facebook or YouTube Live, wherever you're joining us. And we look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Sequoia Fund Live.